We are at the point of the year where I make silly predictions about Star Citizen for next year. We're doing the 2023 predictions. Last year was not successful. If you saw the video from last time where I was talking about what I predicted last year, I was completely wrong on a lot of things, right on a couple of things. But this year we're going to do it again because it's silly and fun, and I don't mind making a fool of myself. So let's get into some. We've obviously got the big one, server meshing, Pyro, Squadron 42. We'll get to that in a minute. But let's start off with 318. I don't think 318 is going to be live for a while. I think we're going to be in the PTU for a good while before it's even an open PTU. And I think we should hold our breath if we're expecting CIG to come back in January and suddenly everybody's playing 318. They've rushed this Wave 1 patch out, or the patch is out. And realistically, there's a lot wrong with 318 as it stands. You can see the potential, and I think it's going to be a great patch for the game. But there's serious work to do to get it stable to the point that everybody can play it, and that will then roll over into what happens for the rest of the year. So again, I don't think we should expect the normal 4 patches that we get from CIG each year. I think this year is going to be very similar. 2023 is going to be very similar to 2022. I think they're going to be working on back-end stuff. They're going to be majorly focusing on server meshing, and I think that will overtake everything else. And I think what we will expect again is something similar, where we maybe get some sort of patch early in the year that's 319 that might be more about content to keep us kind of happy, and then I think we might be in for a long wait before we get to 4.0. I think there's a chance we get a 3.17.2 where we had that mid-year kind of here's some things to keep you entertained for a little bit patch. I think maybe we'll get a 319.1.2, but I think at that stage they are stopping and they are focusing on 4.0. I don't think they're going to put loads of engineering work into getting a 320 out. Maybe I think it's going to be get 319 out at some stage with some extra bits for us to do, and then the long wait I think for 4.0 and server meshing and Pyro. We'll pause that a minute, we'll come back to that in a second. The next thing to talk about is Vulkan. We obviously have Gen 12 renderer right now. It's in 318. It is not really possible to test because it's on the PTU and there's loads of background code running. They're logging all of what we're doing in the play sessions and trying to get as much information as they can, which is good, but it means it's not really possible to test because that does affect performance. So Gen 12 renderer is there. They're going to optimize it through the year, they've said, and then Vulkan is part of their plan. The thing to remember with this is that it's not like they've not been working on Vulkan whilst they've been working on the Gen 12 renderer. So the idea is that it shouldn't be that far behind the Gen 12 renderer. So I'm personally hoping that if we get a 319 maybe in March, April, maybe there'll be a very rough and ready version of Vulkan, because again, remember, they've said that in the initial version of it, you'll still have the option to choose between DirectX 11 and Vulkan, and so whether they can just chuck something in there to get us testing on, I don't know, we'll see. But I don't think it's going to bring the performance that many people are hoping for. I think many people are thinking, oh, Vulkan, it's going to dramatically improve our performance. But if you look at it in other games where you've got options to switch between DX11, DX12 or Vulkan, it doesn't really bring masses of improved performance, and I just don't see that that's going to happen in Star Citizen. I still think you're going to need a really quick CPU to run this game relatively well. So there we go. I hope that it comes this year. I did say this last year and I was completely wrong, but I hope that it will be this year, and we'll see. Let's talk server meshing. I'd already filmed this all once, and then Chris drops a letter from the chairman with a load more information about server meshing and how it's going to work. The basic of what we're expecting to come first is static server meshing. And when is that expecting to come? Well, the letter tells us they are tentatively aiming, with lots of caveats, for the end of the year 2023. That is what I predicted. Actually, before I filmed this version, I was predicting if we were absolutely, completely the luckiest people in the world, we might get basic server meshing and therefore Pyro at the end of the year. I'm actually less confident now than I was when I recorded this the first time, because if CIG are saying we're hoping to get it at the end of the year with loads of caveats, that really means there's no chance that it's coming next year. We know that CIG, and I think you have to be probably to make games, they're so optimistic in terms of their timelines. They're driving forward, they're setting a kind of shorter deadlines maybe to try and motivate the team to get the work done. But the history of Star Citizen is that anytime they give a date, you can at least add on 6 months, sometimes even a year. So we would have to be insanely fortunate for server meshing, static server meshing. Remember, forget all that other stuff, just the basics. One server talks to another, passes you between them through the Pyro jump point, basically, is what's going to happen. As you travel through that jump point, you'll be passed from the Stanton server to the Pyro server. That's basically what we're looking for as a basic implementation. We'd have to be so lucky to get that this year, and I imagine if we do get it this year, it will be exactly the same as 318 in that it might be in Evocati, it might just about make it to wave 1 if they really push to get it out towards the end of the year. But I just think you have to be smoking something to believe that CIG are really going to get this out next year, because they just don't hit their dates, which is fine, but they're just not going to do that. So I do wonder if we'll get a demo of server meshing working at CitizenCon. Obviously, we're back to a live CitizenCon, and I just wonder if they'll push to show us it working as the kind of big keynote wow factor moment that they like to do with the live shows. I wonder if we'll have that transition from Stanton over to Pyro through the jump point, and it actually be an actual transition between two servers. That could happen. Let's talk about Squadron 42, because it's always fun to talk about Squadron 42, but I think, again, similar to this year, I don't think we're going to hear much about it. I think they are working really hard on it, and I think that obviously the company's focus is, to a certain extent, or at least from the content side of things and the gameplay side of things, is Squadron 42. But I think that work will not be finished by the end of this year, and I don't think there's any chance of a release this year. I think if we're lucky, again, towards the end of the year, we might get some sort of teaser. We might get a bit more than we got this year. All we got really was the CitizenCon, Chris and Richard Tyra going through basically how they're reworking some of the basics of traversal and ladders and EVA, and I think that sort of work will continue throughout the year. But I don't think they're going to be ready to kind of start their massive marketing push, which is what they'll do when they actually are ready to start. They're ready to release the game. They'll go berserk. CRG, I'm sure they've had so many years to plan this out that their marketing for Squadron 42 is going to be on another level. But I don't think that will be this year at all. And finally, as a bonus, let's talk about everybody's favourite, Theatres of War. I think at this point, my thought on this is that it's dead. It's gone. This is kind of how CIG does stuff. When they don't really want to talk about something because they know it's not happening anymore, they just don't say anything, and they haven't said anything for ages now. And I think what we can take from that is that effectively it is no more. As a kind of internal project, it's dead. And I think there's a small chance that in the future, like Satterball, maybe one day we'll get Satterball as a game mode, but I think it's a long way in the future. And I think effectively they've just had to prioritise other things. The teams that I imagine be working on Theatres of War, in terms of all the networking problems that they had with it, in terms of the server performance, are obviously focused on server meshing. And so it just is not a priority in any way, Theatres of War, and I just don't think it will be. And I think it has gone the way of Satterball, and I think we basically should forget about it. It's just not coming. But I could be wrong. I just don't see it anyway. I think it's gone. So there you go. There's some silly predictions. I would love to hear your predictions, because what I find is that I only have a limited viewpoint on this game, and hearing your guys' opinions is much more interesting to me. And obviously different people have been backing for years, some are quite new to the project, and I'd just love to see and hear in the comments what you guys are thinking for next year. But you should subscribe if you like this. Well, this wasn't a normal sort of video. This is normally we're looking at this sort of performance of Star Citizen. You should subscribe if you like that. Like the video. Become a member if you want to support with money, which is amazing. Thank you so much to the members who do that. Genuinely incredible. And also come and join us in the Discord, where we talk about all things Star Citizen performance and PC parts. So that's enough of this one. I'll see you soon. Bye.